Yesterday was a day that I'll never forget. It started like any other day, but my nephew surprised me in an unexpected way. I decided to make breakfast, and the sun was shining through the window, making the kitchen warm and bright. I felt great as, if nothing could go wrong, I got up, brushed my teeth, and went to the kitchen, excited to cook something tasty. I chose to make pancakes, my nephew's favorite. As I fixed the batter, I heard bird chirping and cars driving by outside. It was peaceful. When the pancakes were sizzling on the griddle, and my nephew walked in, rubbing his eyes with a smile. "What's for?" he asked, clearly excitedly, when I told him we were having his face lit up, and we laughed together as I flipped the pancakes. And today, I raised an eyebrow, curious about what he meant. We frequently went on small outings, but this felt different. He mentioned exploring the nearby park and looking for hidden treasures, which made me excited after breakfast. We grabbed some snacks and headed out. The sun was shining even brighter now, and I felt energized as we strolled through the park, searching for anything interesting. We found unusual rocks, pretty flowers, and even a few bugs. My nephew's excitement made the day even more fun. The time we got home, I was tired but happy. I never expected such a simple morning to turn into a memorable adventure. I realized I hadn't just made pancakes. I had created a special day with my nephew. Looking back, I knew I would cherish this day. For a long time, I had this feeling that today was going to be a great day, as I knew they were my nephew's favorite, and he would always request them whenever we had breakfast together. It was as if he couldn't eat without them. I felt a bit of panic, because I knew how much he looked forward to having them. I could already imagine my nephew's face lighting up when he saw them on the table. He had this funny thing about hot dogs. It didn't matter what else was on his plate as long as they were hot dogs. I wasn't sure why he loved them so much, but I didn't want to disappoint him. I knew I had to get them ready before he woke up. "Oh no, where are those hot dogs?" I muttered, feeling a bit stressed as I realized that Lucas, my nephew, would be coming down for breakfast any minute. I searched the kitchen, Franley hoping to find them before he showed up. Lucas loves hot dogs more than anything, and I didn't want to disappoint him. The thought of him asking for his favorite breakfast made me move even faster. Just as I was about to give up, I heard a calm voice behind me. "What's got you all worked up, Angel?" It startled me for a second, and I turned to see Lucas standing there. Not my mom's smile was so relaxed, and it almost made me forget my panic. He was clearly curious about why I was so stressed. "Oh, well," I stammered, feeling embarrassed. "Please don't be upset, Lucas. I forgot to prepare your favorite hot dogs." My voice fell off. I felt a wave of guilt wash over me because I was so certain he would be disappointed. But I had to admit my mistake. It was strange that morning, because it was the first time I had ever seen Lucas smile like that. Usually my nephew had a gloomy expression and barely spoke to anyone except for me. So his smile caught me off guard, making the moment feel unusual, but kind of nice. It was like seeing a completely different side of him that I hadn't expected. "Are you sure you're okay with no hot dogs?" I asked, still concerned that you like hot dogs. I felt like I had let him down, but I needed to know if he was really okay with it. Lucas usually made it clear when something wasn't quite right. "Yes, I do." Lucas said, his voice calm. "But you forgot to make them. So let me ask, would you like to eat hot dogs?" His tone was curious, and he moved in close, almost too close, looking me right in the eyes. It was a strange moment, and I wasn't sure what to make of it. "Yes, hot dogs are great for breakfast," I responded. My heart began to race for some reason I couldn't explain, but there was definitely something in the air that made me feel nervous. Maybe it was the way Lucas was acting, or maybe it was just the oddness of the whole situation, but I knew something felt different. "There's a hot dog I want you to try," Lucas said, as his hands moved toward his package. I was surprised by what he said because it sounded strange and his actions were a bit odd. "But we don't have any." I explained nervously that I had forgotten to buy some. At the market, almost stumbling over my words, he didn't seem to care that there were no actual hots. His focus was elsewhere, and I could tell something was different about the way he was acting. "That's okay," he said, still looking at me in a way that made me feel uneasy. His hands kept playing with his package, and I didn't know what to do or say. At that moment, it felt like everything had changed in the air, like a shift wasn't ready for. I tried to stay calm, even though my heart was racing faster. "Maybe we can just," Lucas looked at me while still holding. His package. It wasn't about the food, he said softly, but I could feel a tension in the room that hadn't been there before. It was difficult to explain, but something didn't feel right, and I wasn't sure how to deal with it. All I wanted was for things to return to normal, but it seemed like normal was slipping further away. "Well, it's not the hot dog you'd expect. It's a different kind of hot dog," Lucas said as the package in his pants grew larger and larger. I suddenly felt like I couldn't. My heart was pounding, and I didn't know what to do. Because everything felt so strange, I stood there frozen, trying to make sense of what was happening. My mind racing with confusion, and the air felt heavy. I kept thinking, this isn't real. This isn't happening. But the more I looked, the more I realized something was definitely wrong. His package kept getting bigger, to the point that I could see that his pants were already wet. I tried to step back, but my legs felt weak, as if they didn't want to move. Lucas just stood there watching me with that same strange smile on his face. I didn't know what to say or how to react to what was going on. I thought to myself the feeling in me, and I just went along with it, trying to figure out what was going on. "Hold for a moment," he said, sounding serious. "I'm going to let you taste this hot." His words didn't make sense to me, but I stayed still, hoping things would start to make more sense. Soon, then all of a sudden, his package moved it and slithered straight into my buns, disappearing so quickly that I didn't know what to think. My heart raced, and I felt even more confused. "Wait, this isn't right, Lucas," I said final. I hoped he'd listen this time, but he kept going, and I was stuck unsure of what to do next. "Just relax," Lucas said so calmly, as if everything were perfectly normal. "You'll love it." Later on, his package was still moving back and forth, and I couldn't help but just close my eyes in pleasure. Then he suddenly withdrew his hands and wet them with his saliva. I didn't know why he did this, but like before, I stayed quiet and didn't do anything. My mind was racing, trying to figure out what was going on, but I just couldn't move or speak. "Here goes," Lucas said again, sounding so confident in himself, and he ran his wet hands through my dumplings, and everything felt strange. I wasn't sure if I should let him go, but before I could say anything, "Oh no," I shouted so loudly, my voice echoing in the room, and I wasn't even sure why I was shouting. It was as if my body reacted on its own. I didn't know how to describe it. My mind kept telling me to stop, to say something, to get Lucas to leave the room. But the rest of me couldn't figure out what to do. I was frozen and torn. I was torn between wanting to end it and being curious about what would happen next, but my negative thoughts took over. I noticed that he was slowing down, which made me angry. "Please don't slow down. I adore it," I yelled. Not sure why. I was feeling this way, and a wave of shame washed over me. I wasn't willing to admit it, but I was enjoying what was happening and didn't want him to stop. Lucas's face was surprised as I spoke those words, as if he didn't expect me to react this way. I could tell my feelings were confusing him, but I didn't care. I just wanted him to keep going and feel the excitement that had built up inside me. My heart raced with a variety of emotions, and it was almost hard to believe that I was feeling this way. I was still ashamed, but I couldn't help myself. I wanted more. Lucas seemed to hesitate for a moment, but then he smiled, and I could see that my words had given him confidence. He started to move again, and I felt a rush of happiness. I was caught up in this strange feeling, and it felt nice to be able to express what I wanted. I wish I could just forget the guilt and focus on the moment I realized that sometimes feelings can be confusing, especially when you don't know what to expect next. As we continued, I found myself enjoying the experience even more. The worries and shame began to fade away, replacing by a sense of freedom. I let myself sink into the moment, allowing the happiness to take over. It was as if everything else had disappeared, and all that mattered was what was happening. Right then, I felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, and for once I could just enjoy being in the moment without any thoughts holding me back. "You seem to enjoy it so much," Lucas said with a grin that made everything feel even more intense. His voice had a way of making the moment feel exciting, and I couldn't help but feel a rush of warmth inside. "Can I show you a greater experience than this?" He asked, full of curiosity, waiting for an answer. He picked me up in his arms and carefully let his package slide through my buns. It was like he was giving me a special adventure, and I was caught up in the excitement of it all. As he held me, could see how much he wanted to make me feel loved. It was almost as if I were very alive, and in that moment, I felt happy to be cared for. I could picture myself smiling, feeling warm and safe in Lucas's, though I wasn't moving much. It felt like I was part of something special. There was something magical about how Lucas was treating me, making me feel important. I was having so much fun at that point that I didn't want him to stop. It felt exciting and new, and I wished we could keep going. I was completely engrossed in how great it felt. I didn't care how long it took. All I wanted was for him to continue, so when he abruptly stopped, a wave of disappointment washed over me. I couldn't help but wonder why he had paused, and I hoped he would resume soon. Just as I thought the moment was over, said something that piqued my interest. "It's about to come out now," he announced. That I was perplexed and didn't understand what he meant. My heart began to race with curiosity as to what he was talking about. Perhaps it was something else. I moved in closer. I was eager to hear what he would say next, my mind racing with questions. When he explained that "This is the hot dog, I want you to try this." I blinked in surprise, trying to understand what he was saying. It was a strange idea, but something about his words made me feel intrigued. My imagination began to run wild, and I could almost picture what he meant. Maybe this was all part of a fun game, something that would make our time together even more exciting. I wanted to know what would happen next. I was completely taken aback when I saw Stepan act so quickly. He suddenly grabbed his right in front of me. Lucas's package kept writhing and throbbing, and I felt a mix of fear and curiosity. It looked so powerful, almost like it was trying to escape and wreak havoc on everything around it. I was worried that my mouth wouldn't hold up, and I found myself holding my breath. The sight of Lucas's package struggling made me nervous, but at the same time I couldn't help but feel a little thrill from the excitement of it. I'd never seen anything like this before, and my mind was racing with possibilities. Next, Lucas jumped with joy, exclaiming, "It's arrived. It's here." His eyes were closed tight, and he seemed almost like he was waiting for a surprise. I felt my heart begin to race, wondering what was going to happen next. The way he acted made me curious and a little anxious. At the same time, I could tell that whatever he was excited about was something big, and I was eager to see it unfold then. Without warning, my mouth reacted to the throbbing of his package, and it released a thick, whitish liquid, and it poured out through my mouth. I felt a little sad, knowing that the exciting moment we shared was over, but I was grateful for the experience. When Lucas finished, he looked so relieved, as if a huge weight had been lifted off his shoulder. I was still trying to wrap my mind around everything that had just happened, but he didn't leave me alone for long. Lucas stepped forward and began to help me clean up the mess he made, as we wiped away the spilled venom together. I couldn't help but feel a mix of, to me, his smile was bright, and he looked genuinely happy. I blinked in surprise, still trying to understand what he said. Part of me wanted to laugh at how serious he was about hot dogs. But after our adventure, I felt a strange connection to him as he walked away. I stood in the kitchen, feeling a bit lost, and I realized I hadn't even had breakfast, yet what started as a simple morning had turned into something unexpected and exciting. Still, I knew I had shared something special,